Okay, here we have the auto-scaling group that we created earlier, and it has a desired capacity of 1, minimum capacity of 1, and maximum capacity of 4. To create a dynamic scaling policy, we go to the Automatic Scaling tab and then Create Dynamic Scaling Policy. By clicking on this drop-down, we can see the 3 types of dynamic scaling policies I mentioned earlier. I will demonstrate how all of them work and start with target tracking scaling. I'll leave that same name and just add CPU. Under metric types, there are the 4 that I also mentioned earlier. I'm going to select the average CPU utilization 1 and specify the target value as 60. So, again taking the T-shirt website example, this means that the auto-scaling group will automatically add EC2 instances upon detecting that the current running instances serving my website have exceeded this 60% threshold, or it will remove that capacity as needed. However, it is always a good idea to specify a setup time for newly launched instances. I have already talked about this before. So, in this field, I can place 250 seconds, which is the time needed for the preparation instances before being included in the metric. Finally, checking this box will make this policy a horizontal scaling policy only. This means that if I check the box, instances will only be added when the 60% CPU consumption threshold is exceeded, but when that consumption decreases, those instances that were automatically added will not be removed from the auto-scaling group, which would not be a good practice in some scenarios if you have in mind that you want to save costs. Therefore, I will leave it disabled and click Create. Now, the policy will run as needed to keep the average CPU usage at 60%, and will remove those instances as needed. So, if I go to Instances, notice that I only have one instance running that is serving my T-shirt website. So, let's test our automatic scaling policy based on CPU consumption. I'm going to click on Connect, and then Connect. Here, what I'm going to do initially is run this command. Okay, I'm going to clear this. Remember, these tools are for generating stress tests, in this case, to the instance CPU. So, I'm going to run stress-C8. And already with this, I'm simulating a scenario where it's generating a lot of stress to the CPU of my one instance that's serving my T-shirt website. So, if everything is set up correctly, after a few seconds, another instance would be added to help with the workload. I'm going to leave it running on its own for a few minutes and come back to continue with the demo. Well, it's been almost 5 minutes since I ran the stress test. Here in CloudWatch, notice that I have a metric in alarm mode. Remember, we checked the box to enable monitoring when we were creating the auto-scaling group. So, this means that the instance had consumption over the 60% threshold and automatically started a new EC2 instance. If I go to EC2 instances in my other tab, notice that I now have 2 running instances serving my website. If I continue to leave the stress test running, more instances will continue to be added, a maximum of 4, because that's what we configured in the dynamic scaling policy. When the CPU consumption is reduced, it will automatically remove those newly added instances because both the minimum amount and the desired amount was set to 1.